welcome back to the channel, everybody. McCormick-Deering 1020, pretty standard tractor from back in the day, but this one's kind of interesting. This one was placed on track. So the McCormick-Deering company in 1928, 29, and 30, 3 years only, made 486 of these. And they took a 1020 wheel tractor, which is this unit right here, and turned it into a crawler at the factory. And there's some very interesting features about this one. So the track kit is quite unique for this tractor, and they were known for having a larger diameter drive sprocket than front idler. So the tracks kind of came up the back and then sloped down as they went forward. Everything is just bolt on here. So it's basically the wheel tractor chassis, and they just made it work as a crawler. Unique track frames to it. They are one-piece cast, all right? And they wishbone down here. To me, this thin area right here just looks like it could be a weak point to promote breakage. And I think I can, yep, we can see a crack starting right there. It just looks a bit underbuilt, but they had kind of the traditional IH early McCormick crawler design with the recoil spring, the way it wishbones out, and then it pivots the bearing block on this axis down here. So they would pivot that front idler and recoil it right there, as opposed to the Caterpillars that basically just took the recoil spring and their wishbone and put it right on the bearing block and let it slide on the track frame. So it's an interesting setup that they used for years and years. 3 very basic, very heavy cast track rollers. Here's where you lubricate them. These grease fittings feed passages that go in and put grease down to the bearings. The adjusting nut is rather interesting. It's got holes in, so you'd put like a bar in there and you could turn it. I'm not sure what locked it from backing itself off though, unless this was a jam nut that was supposed to run up here and hold that all in position. But we're running very close to the idler face with that wishbone. I don't know if something's a bit worn here or if that's just how it was to keep it clean. But typical hallmark of a lot of the early McCormick IH crawlers, it's like they've got reliefs down here, which would usually be like snow reliefs, but they all had them. Undercarriage actually is pretty stand-up. These rails have a lot of material left, and bushing wear external, not bad. Sprocket teeth are getting, they're a bit sharp. It's kind of worn, but, and another thing to note, this is the very early track pin retention system where they put a cotter pin on each side. Now, like the early, I believe the Holt 2-ton crawlers used this, and that was pretty well known for loosening those pins. Those cotter pins would break or fall out. Track pins would walk out because they weren't really press fit. But it just shows the early crawler tech of the day. They put these wood blocks on to get just above the grouser pads, make it easier to drive around, but yeah, they've been built up once. But really, everything here is in pretty fair condition. Operator's platform now, it's the same 3 forward speeds, 1 reverse transmission as the 1020 wheel tractor. This lever here would be belt pulley drive engagement if it was so equipped. We have, I believe, a clutch pedal on this side, 2 brake pedals over there, but the steering is really wild because this was like a bolt-on crawler kit. We've got pretty much the standard tractor back end with differential slightly above where the big bull gear is here. It's further forward. You can see the final drives were bolt-on, where the axle tubes would come out to the wheels. The finals on each side bolted right to that same case. Drawbar brackets bolted then to the back of the finals. We've got a swing plate here. It's in the fixed position now, but you could take those bolts out. You could let that swing side to side. Very handy to have on a crawler. This looks like possibly a rear crank attachment for cranking the engine that someone added. It's not factory, but we're getting off track here. Anyway, back to the steering system. So because the differential on these tractors was located further forward like this, you can see where there's this whole housing with a mechanism comes up to these. Now, these were known as Camel humps back in the day, and this crawler used externally mounted steering clutches, and that's what these controls operated. You can see the levers pivot up or they pivot down. That was a purpose-built function to allow you to either be steering it from the seated position or stand up if you want. And you could loosen these nuts right here. Got all those little teeth. You could position those handles wherever you needed. But yeah, that's how you would release steering clutches, by mechanism of those handles, either standing or sitting. And that's something that is very, very rare. You don't see many of even the early McCormick crawlers that had these. That was what sparked the whole walk around in itself. Gasoline starting tank here. This would have been kerosene for the main. So you'd start it on gasoline, warm it up, run it on kerosene. At the end of the day, you would turn the tap back to gasoline so you could fill the carburetor and everything with gasoline before you shut it off. Otherwise, if you shut it off with the carburetor full of kerosene, good luck getting that started again when it was cold. But very, very interesting and rare crawler tractor. Another design feature to note is this pivot bar that's down under the belly of the machine. We'll get a view of it on the other side as well. You see how it was just custom bracketed to fit with this sloped bell housing bottom from the McCormick-Deering 1020 wheel tractor. We've got these adjusting nuts with these threaded pads that you would cinch up all your slack, and then that would get it anchored. And then the wishbone from the original tractor would come back and pivot under here where this bracket is attached to. But the neat part of it is it's an oscillating bar, because these are ball socket joints on each side. So that would let your track frames rise or lower to traverse uneven ground. We've got the same ball socket joint on this side as well. They even give you a grease fitting, keep them well lubricated. Again, another view of those bolt-on external final drives. I have no idea how the mechanism inside these Camel humps actually worked, but it turned into a vertical shaft that went down and manipulated. I have to imagine your clutches and everything and brakes were housed into those final drives. But yeah, stand-up undercarriage on this side for the most part, and some neat hand-welded fenders. And I don't know if these were original from the factory, because they made so few they would have just kind of shortened some existing fenders and went with it. I don't know. But a flat operator's platform. There's your oil pressure gauge right down there. Really, really interesting setup. And you do not see many of these. Like I said, under 500 made total. Another key feature to this makes it unique is how the air cleaner mounts to the side of the radiator side casting right there. Otherwise, the rest of it, standard McCormick-Deering 1020 wheel tractor. So I hope you all enjoyed the walk around. Very, very neat piece. Thanks for watching, everybody.